Welcome to the Self-Control Show, a podcast for men. If you get defensive, shut down, or find yourself going 0 to 100, you're in the right place. Most men were never taught how to regulate their emotions. And this show is about changing that. It's not therapy, and it's not fluff. It's training. I'm your host, Jason Schnitzer. Let's get to work. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Got another great one for you today. And we're going to talk more about something that I've brought up in the past and really what's been, really ringing true for a lot of the guys that I'm talking to and coaching with is defensiveness. On this show, we're going to talk about why it's killing your marriage and how to stop it. Really, we want to dive into, the dynamic that's at play in the moment, because I hear it all the time. And let me know if this is you and you identify with it. Most guys don't really think in the moment that they're being defensive. What we think is, hey, we're just explaining ourselves. We're wanting our wife to understand our side. And the problem isn't your intention, it's the impact that it has and how she experiences you. Right? So whether you think you are or you aren't, the question is like, hey, what would your wife say? Would she say that you're being defensive? And, this is not to shame, you guys for getting defensive. It's a normal response, I'll call it. But a way that you want to look at it is defensiveness in and of itself is a form of self-protection. Through the lens in which, at least I look at this, it's your nervous system trying to avoid feeling certain feelings. Right? And in the moment, it could be like, hey, you're wrong, right? You're feeling criticized, you're feeling rejected, you're feeling not enough, you're feeling like a failure. And what all that, like basically what you make it mean about you. And you revert into a survival response of self-protection and you're completely out of connection, right? And so when you're in that moment and or even like if you're reflecting back on that moment, because, it happened again, you got defensive, conflict didn't go well. The question you ask yourself is, what am I trying to protect myself from in this moment? What am I trying to protect myself from feeling in this moment that I'm getting defensive, right? And, a lot of guys, they're just like, I don't know why this happens, right? Why I do it. I look back and I know that's not what I should be doing and what I should be saying and like I should be listening. But in that moment, it just feels like I can't. And guess what? It all goes back to our past, right? Well, what happened in conflict when you got things wrong when you were a kid? Did you have a dad or a mom that was impossible to please, right? Was there a lot of shaming when you made a mistake instead of it being met with like, hey, it's okay, you're learning? Like, were you really made to feel bad about it? Is your identity tied to the level of competence that you have, right? When things are going well and you're performing, you feel really, really good. But like if things are wrong, does all of a sudden like you go into, massive self-criticism or self-loathing? A lot of times those are really key indicators and signals that, you've got some stuff there. And, another thing to think about is like, hey, when your wife is upset or she brings something up that's an issue, do you feel like you're in trouble? It's a big one. A lot of guys will be like, yeah, it feels like I'm in trouble. It's like, well, your wife can't put you in timeout. Right? And that feeling of being in trouble, like, is that familiar feeling? Right? Does your brain hear like, I'm failing or I'm in trouble or I suck or I'm not enough? That's not logic in that moment. That's your nervous system activating, right? And when instead of being able to listen and hear and like understand her experience and validate it and like be curious about where she's coming from, right? You get defensive. So what she experiences when she's sharing her pain, what you hear is blame and you try to explain. What happens and the impact that has is like she feels unheard, right? When you justify, she feels alone in that moment or lonely, right? And again, how like your intentions aren't to make her feel alone, make her feel unheard, right? But what happens in her experience of you, obviously she's not here, but I dare you to ask her, right? Is like basically she's probably thinking You care more about being right in this moment than actually understanding her, right? Understanding how the thing that you did or whatever happened impacted her, right? And eventually what happens is she'll just stop bringing those things up, right? Not that she's not okay with that, or sorry, not because she's okay with it, right? But because a lot of times, like you try countless times and it just doesn't get through. And eventually you just kind of like give up, right? Because it's not safe to bring something up because, hey, every time I've ever brought something up, even if it's like taking out the trash, there's like a reason why, right? Instead of ownership or just listening, there's defensiveness, right? And that's kills marriages, right? It's probably killed more marriages than infidelity in a lot of ways, or is the big driver for infidelity. Because like ultimately what happens is like you don't feel safe, you don't open up, so you don't share things, so you lose that emotional connection. And eventually physical connection dies, right? And we're humans, so we got to find that we like desire and thrive in, deeply crave connection. So that's how relationships usually end in, a betrayal or a loss of intimacy, right? And a lot of times all it starts with and ends with is just like, can I bring something up to you without you getting reactive and making it about you, right? That's ultimately the cost. Is there's this pattern, you get into the same fights, right? A lot of times guys in the moments here like, oh, not this again, or here we go again, right? But again, when that is what is going on our side of the street, your wife's experience of that is going to be, I'm walking on eggshells, right? I'm going to feel more emotionally distant from you because, can't share. So you can't have any connection there. If there's a conflict, what do I have to do? I have to like suppress it or repress it, right? So there's going to be less affection, less warmth, right? Less nurturing, less caring, and of course, less intimacy. And the thing that gets guys and where it shows up a lot is that number one, intimacy, but also respect, right? It'll show up sideways and like, hey, you'll say one thing in front of the kids and your wife will undermine you, or vice versa, right? Because there's no trust, there's no connection, and it's like there's less caring. And a lot of times that's really what hits home, right? And a lot of times guys will just start avoiding conflict, right? And think like, I'm just going to keep the peace and not say anything. The opposite of like defensiveness and fighting isn't shutting down to keep the peace, right? That's actually disconnection and doesn't do anybody any good, right? Think of it like a business. Like if there was an elephant in the room and it was impacting the bottom line and taking in like the business out of profit, and you're always running a negative, drawing from your reserves and your accounts to keep things going, as opposed to like having a hard look in the mirror, being able to have hard talks and making a shift. Well, eventually, guess what? The business fails, right? And that's what happens to relationships. Sometimes one small cut at a time, right? It could be something little, little, and little, and little, little. And right, if you can't even handle like little conflict, then what makes you think that like your wife is going to trust you or feel safe enough to bring up like the deep, hard conversations, right? The shift that we want to have is noticing what is like activating for us in that moment, right? Going to the top of what I started talking about, that self protection, self preservation, like what's happening inside you, right? Can we get into like what is impacting our nervous system that we can't even sit and listen, right? Because what we want to shift into is curiosity, right? That is the cure for defensiveness, right? We got to figure out what's happening inside of me. Why do I go into self protection mode? So that, kind of like your own curiosity for you, so that instead of defending, right, we're looking to understand the other person before we get into explaining our side, right? We're looking to validate their experience, understand their experience before we share what's going on for me, right? And that can actually sound like, this is hard to hear, but tell me more. I want to understand better, right? What did it feel like for you? Is there more there, right? Repeating back what you're hearing, saying things like, hey, did I get all that? Like, is there more that I need to hear and understand? Do you feel understood? right? And then always remembering that in those hard moments, because it is hard, conflict is not easy, right? That when you understand and validate someone's experience, it doesn't mean that you agree, right? Because you can have your experience, they can have theirs. And a lot of times it's different. It's like subjective, right? It's like if you like a movie and I don't like it, we can sit and argue about it all day, or we can just like understand that we have different opinions about things. And we're not always going to see eye to eye, but that doesn't mean that like we can't be friends, right? But also like you want to understand better because we are good friends. We want to like hold that sense of like positivity there, right? Like, oh, I wonder why, like, why does that person feel that way about this thing, right? And if you care about them, which most of us do about our wives, we want to make their experience of us better. So we can learn, even though we don't agree with something, we can learn better how certain things impact them, right? So if you could take this in a nutshell this week and like what you want to practice, like call it a like a challenge, right? Just notice in a conversation. Notice every time you're going to go get the urge to explain yourself. Notice as you're listening, are you actually listening to understand her? Or are you listening to rebuttal? Are you building your case? Right? And instead of blurting all that out, just try repeating back what you heard. It's called active listening, right? And ask a question instead, as opposed to trying to build your case and then ask a question to be like, I gotcha, right? Or to have them be wrong, right? And if you could just do that for 30 seconds more, and maybe even longer than what's comfortable for you, just being able to listen, start to see what happens, watch what happens, right? If you're able to just listen. Because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of guys think that, like, oh, I got to be perfect. Oh, I'm not enough, right? And nothing I ever do is enough. And, you know, the truth is that your wife does not need you or want you to be perfect, right? What she wants is for you to be able to stay present when she's hurting, when she's having hard moments, right? When she brings something up that's not comfortable for her, it actually takes a lot of bravery and courage to do, especially if we've got a pattern of being defensive. And guess what? At this point, for some of us, that is not going to sound very friendly because sometimes your partner is just sick and tired of defensiveness and just doesn't care anymore. Doesn't care how they say it, doesn't care about hurting your feelings or not at this point. Sometimes that could be on purpose, right? Which is a sucky place to be. But I'm also here to say that when you learn how to do this, right, and you stop being defensive, it can shift everything, right? Because when you can create emotional safety in a relationship, that means you can talk about anything, right? Might not be easy, but then what happens is, guess what? Your wife stops resenting you, right? And ultimately, you stop resenting your wife because you both get the experience, ideally, being able to bring up things that maybe you don't like or that you'd like to see differently, right? Instead of suppressing and repressing and holding everything in, right? Because every time you choose curiosity over defensiveness, what you're really telling your wife is that your experience matters to me just as much as mine, right? And that is how you rebuild trust. And when you can execute on this and have that be the thing that you do consistently over time, that is like putting money in the bank, right? In the of the relationship, right? That ultimately earns you the benefit of the doubt. It earns, like in hard moments, her getting over things more quickly, right? About when the past comes up and things come up, right? The laundry list of all those times that you did the thing wrong, like starts getting smaller and that stops being called out and a lot can change, right? Emotional safety comes back, emotional connection comes back, and that's, guess what? The physical stuff comes back too. So if you resonated with this, this is like the thing that's the thing, right? This is what being able to regulate your emotions in the moment, be in control of your reactions, not going 0 to 100, not shutting down, not getting defensive. Like, this is what I do with guys. As always, like, there's a call, hop on a call with me. We can talk more about what that looks like, sounds like, feels like, etc. And be happy and stoked to chat with you guys. So hopefully you found this valuable. And again, I really challenge you this week To notice if you start getting into the urge again of explaining yourself, taking inventory of what she's saying, looking for a rebuttal, right? That is defensiveness to a T, right? Explaining your side before you thoroughly hear and listen what she's saying. So that's the challenge. Thanks always, guys, for watching, listening on all things. If you enjoy this or got value out of this podcast, of course, rate and give me 5 stars on there. If that's been your experience, helps a lot. And yeah, catch you on the next one.